Hi, I'm Doug Stevenson for Quinte Conservation, and we're on location in one of the more flood-prone areas in the Quinte region. We're just north of the City of Belleville downtown core. We're on River Road, and I'm joined by Mark McDonald, Chief of the Belleville Fire Department, and we're going to learn how to sandbag today.
That's right, we are.
Fantastic. So I guess first things first, if I have to sandbag, what do I need, and where do I find what I need?
Well, you're going to need sandbags, you're going to need plastic poly, and obviously a supply of sand. The city can get sand delivered. We can arrange for our public works to deliver sand to people who might need it. But the sandbags you can get through retail, commercial supplies through places like Home Depot and Lowe's and other hardware stores. And there's also sandbag suppliers, and actually they're quite readily listed on the internet.
Okay.
And you can buy bags in packs of hundreds or even thousands.
Okay. Got my sandbag here. Can you tell me a little bit about it? Anything I should know?
Well, these sandbags are they're a good sandbag to use. They have the option to tie or not to tie, and we can talk about that in a minute. The other thing to keep in mind with these bags is they will take a lot of weight. So just using any other type of standard plastic bag may not work. They'll break out with the weight of the sand. So that's the type of bag to use. They do biodegrade in the sunlight, so you can't fill these and leave them stockpiled for any length of time. Essentially, you should leave them empty and then fill them only when you need them, and then empty them at the end of the event. And not leave them in place, because they will start to rot and break down, and then you'll end up with more of a mess in your backyard.
Right, okay. All right, well, let's fill one. Okay. I'm going to let you do the dirty job.
Yeah, so just keep the base of the bag right on the ground, because it's going to get heavy pretty quick.
Okay.
And it's just a matter of just filling like this, and truthfully, I find this grip, this underhand grip on the shovel, and just that's perfect. So we filled it about half full. Okay. You'll notice it's quite heavy.
Yeah.
It's very heavy. If you wanted to tie it, say you were filling it in a remote location, and then trucking them in or bringing them in, it's just a simple matter of a quick shoestring tie. Okay. Just a simple, just like you're tying your shoes.
Okay.
And done.
I can do that.
And done. Or conversely, if you're just filling them up at your location and you just want to stack them just about halfway over in line with the seam, and just simply throw them down.
Oh, really, eh? So it doesn't matter. You don't have to tie them.
They don't have to be sealed. As long as they're flipped over, it'll prevent the sand from spilling out or washing out.
Okay.
That's all you need to do.
And how heavy is this?
That's probably about a 40-pound bag.
Yeah.
But when it's saturated with water, it will weigh close to 100 pounds. So if you fill that bag will be far too heavy for you to handle once it's wet. Okay. And that's when people are going to get hurt. So half to 2/3 full at most.
Obviously, if you're out here doing work like this, you're going to be here for hours on end. Are there other things we should keep in mind just to save our bodies?
Well, what you will find is you will fatigue quickly. So make sure you take adequate breaks. Lift with your feet, not with your back. Use wheelbarrows, hand carts, ATV trailers, anything to help move these without handling them as little as possible. So get the sand as close to your site, and have to shuttle them as little as possible to get to where you need to put them down. Okay. And just bear in mind that they are going to be heavy, and well-meaning young kids may want to help out, but just remember, they can become injured very quickly. So, you know, the elderly who may be more frail and the young kids, this isn't really a job for them. There's other tasks they could be doing to help out at a sandbagging event other than doing the heavy work. Okay, so we're filling our sandbags. We're getting lots full. Next step, go make the wall itself? We have to build the wall.
Okay,
absolutely. Let's
go build a wall.
Okay.
All right, we've got our sandbags filled. I would guess that most people, you know, once they fill their sandbags, they would feel this sense of urgency to get out and to make the wall right away. But there's got to be a lot of preparation involved. One thing would be the location. So where would we want to put the wall in relation to the house? Well,
you certainly don't want to put your sandbags right up against the wall of your home, because the water will saturate the ground underneath where the water is, and that can create hydraulic pressure, which could actually force in basement walls. So
you kidding?
Oh, and it's happened. Wow. It has actually happened. So what you want to do is you want that wall a few feet out from your house at the minimum, but taking advantage of elevation and slope around your home.
What happens if we bring the wall out too far? Let's say everybody in the neighborhood brings their wall out right next to the river.
Well, the problem then is we're taking away floodplain.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, the river has to outflow its extra capacity. So if we narrow the walls in,
all that water,
we're just creating an issue for someone downstream, and we're creating an issue for people upstream, because all we're doing is we're narrowing it. So it's an hourglass effect. So it's going to cause a bottleneck at the top, and it's going to cause issues down below as well.
Okay. Now these poor guys behind us have been digging this entire time. So what are they doing here?
Well, there's the 3 steps to the sandbag wall. The first step is what we call keying in or trenching a fairly narrow. It doesn't have to be a super deep trench.
Is it as deep as a sandbag? As wide as a sandbag?
It's roughly as deep and as wide as a sandbag.
Okay.
What we're forming here is when the poly goes down, is it has to form a seal to the ground. And if it's just sitting on the ground and the terrain is uneven and the sandbags aren't that first layer of sandbags aren't firmly planted into the ground, then the water's going to seep in from underneath. So we need to create a lock into the ground, and that's what this keying is it creates a lock into the ground so that sandbag can't be pushed away or can't allow water to flow underneath it.
Okay. All right, are we ready to bring some poly in here then?
Yes,
okay.
we've keyed the ground. We're ready to bring our poly in.
So talk to me about the poly. Is it 6 mil, 8 mil?
Yeah, we recommend the standard construction grade 6 mil poly that you would get in home supply stores for vapor barrier in a home.
So anyone can go out and get it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
And it comes as a 10-foot. When it's spread out, it's basically 10 feet wide, and some of them they come in square footages. Some will be. We recommend if you're going to buy poly to buy the largest roll, which is 2,500 square feet, which will give you 250 running feet of poly.
Okay. So they've got it laid out here. Now, what's the next step?
Well, the next step is we're gonna flip the poly all the way out, except for the edge that's going to remain underneath.
Okay. How much space, how much poly do you want on the other side here for when you're wrapping?
Just enough that the bags that are forming the ballast or the wall can sit on top to prevent the plastic from being pulled out.
So just a couple of feet.
That's fine. 2 to 3 feet would work just perfect for this situation because we're keying into the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
So next step, we're grabbing bags.
Next step, the first row of bags will go into the trench, and we'll get the bags placed into the trench.
Okay.
And that first row, it's really key that we pack those bags in really tight.
So obviously we're just building about a 10-foot section here. But if you're doing this in real life, you're going the perimeter of a house.
Yes.
Would you want to do it sectionally like this?
No, I would suggest that you want to have as few seams in the wall as possible.
Okay.
So if you buy the longest length of poly available and then just keep going with the wall until it does what you need. If you need to put a seam in, you want to have the plastic overlapping in a downhill, in a downstream flow,
so the water
similar to
flows
shingles, so the water doesn't get in behind the wall. We don't want to be bothering with sandbagging garages and sheds. We
focus on
sandbag
what's most important.
The critical, the residence, the actual home. Worry just about protecting your home, but keeping it far enough away from your home that you're not going to end up damaging your foundation.
Okay, great. Okay, let's talk a little bit about wall integrity. These guys are going behind us here, building the wall. Is there a certain height you should have? Is there a certain width you should have?
Well, certainly the sandbags form the ballast for the wall. That's the weight. The water pressure is tons, literally tons of pressure against this wall. So, we were telling people during the flood is think of it as a linebacker test. If there was a front row of a football team and could they charge that wall, and if they could knock that wall over, then it wasn't going to be a good wall because water has tremendous pressure. So we want to go more than one bag deep.
Okay.
And the general rule is for every height of sandbag we go up, we want to go at least half out. So if you have a 4-foot high wall, you need to have at least 2 feet of depth to it, which is 2 to 3 sandbags.
So the sandbag wall is obviously extremely important, but are there other things that homeowners can be doing to prevent water from getting in their homes?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the wall will still leak, no matter how well you build it. There's terrain, there's water ingress through the soils because the hydraulic pressure of 4 foot of water depth on the outside of the wall, it's forcing down into the ground and it will literally bubble up through the ground on the dry side of the wall. So you need to be prepared for pumping the dry side of your wall out, and that could be done through either a gas-powered pump, even much in the way that you key into the ground. Find a low spot behind your wall and dig a small little hole, and then stick a pump, either the strainer for the pump or the sump pump, into a plastic bucket with some holes drilled into it, and that forms basically an outside sump pump.
Okay. So
you create a low spot, and then as the water comes in, it'll seek that low spot, and then you can just keep pumping it out as you need to.
Okay. Okay, so we talked about the structure of the wall and the height and the width. Do you want to just kind of go almost row by row and just talk about it?
Sure. So this is our base course that's keyed into that trench.
Yep.
That's holding the poly. It's very firm. It's not going to pull out. And then we've gone with bags in the other direction.
Okay.
And then the bags have changed direction as they've gone up. And then the wall will increase in depth as we go up, because again, that whole linebacker challenge of making sure the wall is solid, because it's going to have a lot of pressure against it. So again, this wall is approximately 2 feet high. So this would be a good solid wall for a 2-foot wall.
Okay.
If we were going to go to 4 feet, we'd have to almost double the thickness of this wall again to give it lateral stability so when forces are pushing against it.
Okay, and I see, like you talked about, this one's kind of going over the seam almost like a brick wall. And so do you go 2 rows one way, 1 row the next, 2 rows, 1 row?
Yeah, well, if you build it two bags wide and then your cross course every 3rd or 4th course, then as you need to go up, say as the water levels rise, then you can simply add to the back of the wall without having to do anything to the face of the wall.
Right. Okay, so we got the guys flipping the poly over here, and so that's sealing it in essentially?
Correct. Now we formed our pool wall. So now the water will be flowing by here, but there's no penetrations or no openings for the water to go through. And then they'll put a series of bags on the back side of the poly.
Okay.
And they might throw a couple of bags right on top of the wall. And that'll just help keep the poly from shifting down or sliding out.
Okay.
And the beauty of building this way is, say the floodwaters continue to rise, you simply have to take those bags away, continue building your wall higher, and then flip your poly back over again. So it allows the wall to be moved up and down in height without having to rebuild everything.
Okay, nice. Okay, so once the wall's built, flood comes, but then after the flood, there's obviously still responsibilities that the homeowners have. What's the next step afterward? The sand doesn't just stay there.
No, you can't leave your sandbag wall up. For one reason, it will deteriorate and it'll just rot. The other issue is the sand now has been saturated with river water, which probably picked up septic effluent because there are weeping tiles and septic beds that were probably part of it. So we treat it as a contaminated product.
Really? Okay.
And so what some municipalities will do is they'll open up their landfill site and allow the sand to be dumped there. One thing we really don't want people doing is just adding that sand to their property, which would actually just increase the height of their property and again change the floodplain. So we don't want the sand left in place. We don't want it just sort of scattered about the yard. It really needs to be taken away.
Okay.
Most municipalities can use it as dump cover at their dumps and that type of thing, but it's not something you want to turn into play sand because it has been probably exposed to different types of fluids that have been flowing down in the river during overflow situations, because it picks up all sorts of debris and liquids as it does that. So, the homeowner is really responsible to make sure that that's taken care of at the end of the flood.
So it's something you'd want to contact your local municipality about.
Yeah, and most municipalities will be really good with the communication side of things to make sure that people understand what to do. I mean, in reality, the municipality is not responsible to sandbag your home. Right. You are responsible for your home. It's your private property. It's your home. If your home is in a floodplain, then it's your responsibility to make sure that you are a good steward with that, and that you're making sure that you're doing what needs to be done.
So that's contacting Quinte Conservation. That's contacting the municipality.
Absolutely, and make sure that you understand, that if you're in a floodplain, what you can do for flood prevention, and have that conversation with the conservation authorities. We like to help, we like to be able to assist, but it's not the obligation of the municipality or Quinte Conservation to protect people's personal homes from floods. It's their responsibility, and the best method of preventing flood damage is to actually prepare by doing flood prevention in your own home and flood preparedness. Through working with the conservation authorities for near home berming and those other types of issues that you can take care of, such as maybe you don't need to have your basement as a functional basement if you're that much into the floodplain.
Right. Okay. Well, this has been very educational. I want to say thanks so much for coming out and joining me today, Mark. For more information on flood protection, visit quinteconservation.ca.